Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Friday night. It is the Earthmaster out here. What's the time? 10:51 p.m. California time. November 1st, 2024 is the date. We've got some interesting earthquake activity out here across the Loi Seamount. Well, for those of you that don't know, this is a submarine volcano just off the Big Island of Hawaii. One of the newest areas that will be producing land in the future. So if you want to get your Hawaiian vacation home out here, you might want to check in very soon here, because we're looking at some elevated seismic activity out here across the Loi Seamount. So obviously Hawaii sits upon the hot spot out there across the Pacific plate. Throughout the millennia, throughout hundreds and thousands of years, millions of years, the Hawaii volcano islands there have been slowly, well, at least on the map here, moving off in this general direction. As you can see, throughout time there, they've been withered away. Yeah, that's, it's goodness. We're living in some interesting times here, because we're witnessing the ongoing earthquake activity and geology that takes place here during formations of new land out here across the hotspot of the Pacific plate. So right now, obviously everything going well out there across Honolulu to the Big Island, but slowly things are changing out here. We have a swarm of earthquake activity out there across the Loi Seamount, with some pretty decent earthquake activity out there in the 2 range. The latest, a 3.1 out around the Loi Seamount. If you look at this earthquake activity, it's relatively somewhat deep here underneath the area. Now, the Loi Seamount is a submarine volcano, and I'll give that to you guys here, the Hawaii folks here, and I have quite a few folks here on the channel that watch this update from Hawaii. I'll leave that to you guys. Okay? Previously known as Loi Seamount. Lohi. That's I haven't come to pronounce that yet. So maybe one day I will. But that is the name of the seamount. Why it's been changed to that, I don't know. Currently, the top of the seamount is about 3,200 feet below sea level. So we got a little ways to go to build up the seamount for your future homes out there. Now, it looks like this activity began forming around 400,000 years ago, and is expected to begin emerging above sea level about 10,000 to 100,000 years from now. So build your homes out here. At least, make the floor plans, right? Here in the next 100,000 years or so. So you can have a beautiful house out there in the Loi Island one day. Goodness. Crazy, right? But that is the facts. So earlier this year, we watched a swarm of activity from the summit area of Kilauea Volcano, drifting off here across the southwest rift zone off to this area. And literally nothing happened. There wasn't any further activity that popped off from this area. And it just sat down there. So obviously magma went down into this region here and sat down there for a little bit. There was no further surface activity, no further eruption. And then eventually we seen escalated activity out here across the Middle East rift zone with further influx of magma. But, if you look at the 30-day chart out here, this is just a 30-day chart. We would have to go back the past, 4 months of activity to see the swarm of earthquake activity and the magma intrusion that took place out here in the last couple months towards the Loi Seamount. But I'm not going to go back this far. This is just the last 30 days. So you can see a very obvious swarm of activity leading off to Loi Seamount. And it's not anything to be surprised about, right? Because eventually there's going to be new islands out here. Um, in 100,000 years, 80,000 years, 100,000 years or so. So it makes sense to see further volcanic activity away from the big island of Hawaii out further across this area. And that's, we're witnessing that as we live, right? It doesn't happen in an instant. It happens over time, and much more than what our human lives are capable of comprehending, right? 100,000 years or so. But, we see it. There's a swarm of activity, magma underneath the area leading off to Loi Seamount. And it's just a matter of time before we potentially could see, some eruptive activity out here. But I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon. But it's always, obviously, a possibility with these underwater volcanoes. So, and that's where the swarming's taking place here today. But, if we were to go back the last couple months, there's a swarm of activity leading off here to the Kilauea volcano, southward here to this region. And it just makes sense, to see newer activity out here build up over time for your next big island Hawaii vacation spot here. It's going to be the big island of Loi, right? I guess. I don't know. We'll see what happens here in the future. But some interesting activity nonetheless taking place out there right now. The latest, a 3.1 earthquake. So let's see what's going on. Southern California lighting up out here across the San Jacinto Fault Zone with a one of the larger quakes out here, 2.1. Nothing major going on there. Salton Sea area, got to watch that. Obviously, at 1.3, couple minutes following this earthquake up here. So I watched for patterns. You got to watch for these patterns and elevated seismicity across the area. And right now, it's not too obvious here, but we could be watching for some further activity across this area of Southern California, the Salton Sea area. We'll definitely we'll keep an eye on it, right? Further up north, not a whole lot going on there through Northern California. In fact, it's awfully, almost looks like a ghost town up there through the Pacific Northwest. Let's see what's going on there through the tremor map here tonight, where we're looking at 57 epicenters here of tremor across the Cascadia subduction zone. Really nothing big, nothing of abnormal activity there for now. Little earthquake there across the Fiji area. But goodness, that's pretty deep. 360 miles deep there for a 5.3. So it's a major area, obviously a major area for some super deep earthquake activity. And pretty much this is where this is pretty much this. If you could spot any area out here along the planet, along the plate tectonics, where things start to evolve, right? The trail of dominoes, right? If you could follow a domino pattern here across the plate tectonics, right here is exactly where it would begin. And for some reason here, when we get super deep earthquake activity out here, it triggers a massive swarm of earthquake activity across the plate boundaries westward. And it's in a very odd area. But this is where it all starts out here. So when we see elevated earthquake activity out here in the deeper regions, we can expect here further escalation of larger scale earthquake activity out here across the Western Pacific and the Indonesia Islands area. That's the common denominator, so to speak, out here in this area. It's I don't know why, but this is where it all starts. Out there across the Fiji area, Tonga Trench, Kermadec Trench. When things kick up out here, we begin the elevated activity westward here across the plate boundary. Texas. Oh my gosh, what's going on out there in Texas? We struck gold. Gold out there in the western areas of Texas, outside of Pecos. We have struck gold. Well, liquid gold, so to speak. That's the oil fields out here across Texas. And there's a lot of pumping operations out here. If you look here in the topography of the map, it's a little hard to see, but and who knows what's been built up out here since this image was taken. But there's a wastewater disposal pond. There's some type of pad out there, probably a wastewater disposal pad, and and there's a pond down here as well, wastewater disposal pond. Those are not swimming pools out there in the beautiful desert of Texas for the hardworking oil field workers, right? After a hard day's work, you got to jump in a swimming pool to cool off, right? Well, this is not a swimming pool you want to jump into. This is wastewater that is injected back into the surface, underneath the surface areas, after withdrawing the gas areas down below, the oil and whatnot. And it's a very interesting process out here. But earthquake activity has been 99% elevated following the oil boom out here, so to speak. So what goes on out here in these oil fields is strictly and directly and 100% related to the oil field operations out here. So earthquake activity elevated due to the elevated pumping operations out here. That's a fact. Whether it's fracking or natural gas withdrawal or oil field withdrawal, it's that's a fact out there. We could look at graphs all day long, and we could see here since the 1980s, earthquake activity went way up on the chart. You could pretty much draw a straight line straight up soon as elevated oil field operation began. So this is not a question on, well, are these oil fields related to earthquake activity? No, this is 100% proof that earthquake activity is related to the oil field activity out here. And that's a fact, folks. We've seen it day in, day out here. Look at the last 30 days of earthquake activity out here, okay? So there's no major plate boundary. We got 450 earthquakes. And if you look at the satellite imagery out here across the western Texas area, you have to zoom in. I drove out here earlier this year and a couple years ago, and if you look at the map here, these are oil fields all over the place. This is the Permian Basin out here. Massive amount of these oil fields out here. These are not your farmhouses and the typical country folks out here. These are pumping operations out there within feet of each other, and there's earthquake activity because of the North American plate here being underneath continuous strain against the North American craton here. The North American craton is a relatively stable area here east of the Rockies. It runs roughly down here through the Texas area, Oklahoma area, and northward. But now that we poked holes in the earth and we're drilling down into the area, these regions are experiencing strain unlike what we've seen in the past. So earthquake activity is being experienced out here across these oil fields. That's a fact. And I know a lot of oil field workers don't want to announce it, but that is the 100% proof out there. I was on a flight out to Texas from California. It was probably a couple years ago here, and very interesting gentleman that I talked to that was sitting in my seat, and he did some research there with the oil field operations and whatnot. And he told me specifically that we have seen major elevated seismic activity in New Mexico due to all the oil field operation. And the last 30 days, obviously not a whole lot going on, but we have seen some elevated activity out there across this area of New Mexico and the oil fields. And it's just a matter of time before things start to fill in out here. Whether you're in New Mexico, Kansas, Oklahoma, these oil fields will fill in terms of seismic activity. That's a fact. So this is man-made results here of earthquake activity across these oil fields. It's been proven. If you look at any graph out here, do it yourself. I've shown this numerous times out here, how related earthquake activity is in relation to the fracking and the oil field operations out here across Texas, Oklahoma, and other areas out here, including California. All right, so let's move on past that drama, right? A lot of people don't want to talk about it because we have to use oil, right? We have to run our cars. Well, it's a touchy subject, and I don't want to get in on that right now. Off the coast here, or actually it's inland here, Morrill, Maine, little 1.8. Not a big earthquake, but a little spike of an earthquake out there. Let's see what we got here. I got hiccups. I'm trying to withdraw my hiccups, but I'm dealing with my voice and the issues I'm dealing with here. But the hiccups all of a sudden came here. So, all right, who's got a voodoo doll of me? Hello, okay. Make sure that voodoo doll has lots of money in their pocket and good health, because right now I'm not experiencing any of those. Right? I always thought about that. Somebody's got a voodoo doll of me, and as soon as I pop up here on the update, they start poking me. But yeah, I tried salt water. I tried everything, folks. I'm reading all your comments, but it's one of those things here where I kind of feel like I have to just cough it up, and to an extreme. So I don't want to cough up a lung, but I definitely need to cough it up. Super deep activity along the Tonga Trench, Fiji Islands area. Watch for further escalation here across this area around Vanuatu, Solomon Islands. This area is in a very sensitive region when it comes to supermassive deep activity on both sides of the plate boundary. I mean, this is going to happen probably overnight, if not early in the morning. Larger earthquake activity here in between these deep earthquakes, probably above 6 is what I'm guessing. But I'm not an earthquake forecaster because, to say that a 6-pointer is going to happen at 5 p.m. Saturday morning on Vanuatu time is not really a wise thing to state, right? That's just foolish. But we have to look at these trends, look at escalation, and the escalation right now points within this area. It just makes sense. Alaska? What's going on here what's going on in the Cook Inlet area? 4.0. Just a couple hours ago. Looks like nothing major going on here, folks. But the Loi Seamount, that's something new. They raised that earthquake up to a 3.4, by the way. That's fairly deep. So we got deeper earthquake activity triggering underneath the Loi Seamount. Eventually, like I said, this is all going to fill in with further magma, further escalation of explosions, with ongoing volcanic activity. And, Honolulu eventually, down the road, and that's a fact, will be no more. This whole island out here will be probably look like this underwater, and that's a fact here. But not in our lifetime. Probably not in your son, your daughter's lifetime. Probably many, many, many generations down the road. But eventually, all this area is going to be underwater, and we're building new land offshore and over the hot spot there, the Pacific Plate, and it just makes sense here. So to see somewhat elevated seismic activity out here across the area of Loi Seamount. So, if you plan on living for a couple 100,000 of years, well, get in on your residential oceanside beach house out here across the big island of Loi. Eventually down the road, if you know what I mean, right? This takes a long time here to build up the big island of Hawaii. And, easily this area of Hawaii could look like this underwater. So it's just a fact. It's going to happen down the road. Oh yeah, let's go to space weather activity. Goodness. Let's go to space weather, see what's going on here. I'm starting to feel a little bit better, but the proton event is still higher. It almost seems like ever since the start of this proton event here, about 7 days ago, is when my coughing fit or weird feeling in my upper respiratory system happened. So I don't know. It potentially could be. It's probably just a coincidence, right? I don't know. But the proton event is still hanging in there. Southern polar region. Nothing major going on there for solar flare activity. But the elevated potential has been on the uptick. In fact, the solar flare X-flare chart has been updated to a 35% chance for an X-flare. That's actually significant if you really think about it. Watch this area out here. It's starting to make me choke is what's going on. Starting to turn into the Earth-directed view. Good Lord. It won't go away. It's consistent. I'm very glad here that it's getting better, but it's not 100%. It seems to pop up here when I talk louder. So maybe if I talk a little bit quieter, we'll see what's going on here, folks. Okay, just breathe, relax a little bit. So as we breathe in, stretch our arms out and put into position of the I'm trying to kid around actually. I'm not for sure what the stretches are during the meditation, right? The meditation process. Can't remember those moves, but I was trying to kid. All right. Watch this area, folks, okay? Trying to get through this. Watch this area pretty closely. Look at all that popcorn color here. That's a massive area here. That's going to be sunspot number 3878. Okay, it's getting fairly complex here. Got to watch that because that can produce some significant X-flare activity, and it is pretty much Earth-directed view right now. So anything that does pop off from here will be geo-effective in terms of aurora activity. Oh my gosh. It's horrible, folks. I'm trying. I'm really trying. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I try the best I can to produce a good quality live stream and update. But sometimes, this whatever, I don't get sick all that often. But when it pops up, I try to work my way through it, folks. I really do. So I try to provide every single update I can. I don't want to go days without providing an update out here. So I work through it. But we got to watch this area pretty closely. The rest of the region here, not all that concerning. So I think the main focus right here across this area, that's going to be 3878 here for a 35% chance for X-flare activity. Goodness. All right. No major roars in the forecast there for now, folks, but things could obviously change here in the future. There's the visible disk of the sun, 3878. Watch that. All right, so we had a little bit of rain out here. I don't know what we picked up. I think we picked maybe up a tenth of an inch of rain. It wasn't a lot. I was hoping for a lot more rain, but I'll take a tenth of an inch of rain over 110 degrees. So, I kind of have to weigh the options here, right? So we had some rain. Not one of those drought busters out here. Probably not a crack filler, so to speak. Still got a lot of cracks in the field, but we had some rain out here. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Over the next couple days here into the weekend and next week, watch the area of the Southern Plains into the Midwest area. These guys are going to get bombarded here with severe weather activity day after day. So the drought will be no more, but also at the same time, you have to watch for some severe weather activity out there across the area. And it looks to be a pattern as we head into deeper into November. Seattle, what's going on up there in Seattle? It looks like a little earthquake activity right now. A little spike of an earthquake. I added Seattle here to the seismograph stations just because of its proximity here to the the Cascadia subduction zone up north. Not a whole lot shown up there right now, but it does look like there's a little spike of an earthquake showing up there on this Seattle seismograph station. All right. So aside from that, folks, I'm out of here. Have yourself a good night. I need to call it a night. And we'll watch this area around the Loi Seamount. Obviously we could see some type of future near-term eruption as we build the new land out here across the Pacific Plate. So jump on board if you want your new housing out here. Have a good night, folks. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later.